One of the last instructional practices listed at the beginning of the reading non-negotiables is anchor lessons and anchor charts. And again, this was a practice that we were really embedded in a few years back, creating those records with students about the thinking and whether they're thinking on Post-its or you're thinking that you've done together as a group, and it serves as that visual reminder where the students and you have contributed your thinking and your learning. And it's good to come back to the next day. This is what we were thinking yesterday, to remind a starting point for today and connect it to the next point that you're trying to make. So I kept it when I was doing Jen's lessons. I have it over here where I took a different color Post-it each day. We read these 3 different books. And because I was only in there for 45 minutes and I didn't really have a chance, I did the writing on the Post-its. But this was the first book that we had done, and then the second book that we had done, and then the third one that we had done. So it kind of tracks, and we went from what we wonder, and we slapped them on this side, and then when we found the answers, we wrote them and we moved it over to this side. And we could see that we found all the answers within our text, or we did some outside thinking and came up with some ideas. And I listed the 3 different books that we had used and worked along that. This comes from Stephanie Harvey in Strategies at Work about building that community, being curious, we wonder, we learn. It all comes right from there so that they can start to do some of that on their own. So that anchor chart, if you had it hanging in your room and you came back to it, it can be as simple as that, we wonder, we learn, and you can just keep putting Post-its on it and adding to it. It doesn't have to be something that you make for each and every book. It can be ongoing over time. And again, just shows the learning that you may have done. So it shouldn't be fixed. It can be added to at any time.
We had a wondering journal at one point. Was it Georgia Hurd? Who was it that went to a seminar? And
probably Georgia.
Yeah. And it was the same kind of thing. We had a fish tank, and we could wonder about the fish and things. And they had a wonder window where you could put borders, and they could look outside and make wonderings.
Right.
It would be a nature type of start. And then talk about our wonderings and what we had learned from there.
And a nice way to connect that to writing then.
Yes.
So you're doing some wondering in your reading, and now I'm going to connect that, what I've learned, into writing.
Yeah.
Writing about snow or recess in really cold places, or this person that we read about, Snowflake Bentley.
And the new testing that we're going to be expected to do starting next year is going to do a lot of that. It's going to be taking different sources and comparing them and contrasting and making observations about them.
And taking small pieces from each and combining it.
Right. So that's what we talked about a lot in a training with what's happening with this testing. What's the name of it?
Smarter Balance.
Thank you.
So all that has to be taught somewhere, and it's going to start with listening comprehension.
Yeah.
To be the where you lay the groundwork. Does anybody have thoughts on anchor charts or anchor lessons? So, and doing just reading in general over the last while, I'm sure you've seen this before too, by William Glasser, about how we learn, and 70% of what is discussed with others is what we retain, is how we learn and what we retain. So, if you just read it to me and I'm not asked questions, I'm not really held accountable, or I just hear it, then I don't learn as much as if I have to discuss it with another person. And then when we really have to teach someone else, then your learning is even higher at 95%. I think that's an important piece in listening comprehension to remember, and that discussion piece especially is so important. So, the Common Core. So between the reading of just literature, and if, Don, I'm not sure, have you seen these Common Core standards before?
I don't think I've seen literacy. I've seen the math one.
So that's Common Core State Standard, English Language Arts. This is literacy. this is reading, and this is literature. This is standard 1, and this is point 3, so it's like under standard 1, this is like the 3rd section. So I took each one, this one is for literacy, reading, informational text, and it's also the 3rd one, and I took the speaking and listening, which is the first standard, the 2nd one, to take these, and if we compared all 3 of these, what are you noticing is kind of coming out for first graders? What's something that they're going to have to be able to do?
Use their words to describe lots of different things, details, characters.
Yeah.
So they're gonna need to be able to communicate out loud things
Mhm.
from what they've heard
Mhm.
or read.
Yeah. And then talk to someone, answer questions, or talk to someone.
Yeah.
And to me, it's details, and this to me is details.
Yeah.
So your focus in first grade should center a lot around details. So when you're thinking about your read aloud, focusing on details. What does the author want me to know on this page? So Jen, did you bring a read aloud?
I brought a couple of Jam Brett.
Okay.
Put them in the hat.
So if you think about some of the details that you might want the kids to pick out on here.
Mm.
Again, you don't want to have to stop every page because you don't want the reading to be so impacted that you're stopping constantly, they can't enjoy the story and the flow of it. But what might be some of the key details in this story?
It could be the characters, what they're noticing, even, it could be even like in their borders, predicting, thinking like that, you could take lots of routes with those books.
Exactly,
really.
so it's wherever you're at that time.
Mhm.
So maybe in this one, it might be the characters, maybe this one now it's the borders, so it's always going to be fluid, and it's always going to be, it may be the same thing again, maybe they didn't get it this first time, and they need more practice, so you're gonna do the same thing and maybe something else too, if they're able to handle. But again, it's that intention of, I've gotta focus on this one thing, and I'm really gonna work to that. It's not 7 things, it's one thing and going deeply with it. So